It's time now for Between the Lines with Charlie Mitchell, Sun City's premier sports commentator. Join us for another in-depth report on the people and events that shape our community and the people in it. Ladies and gentlemen, with today's guest, here is Sun City's own Charlie Mitchell.
Welcome, TV viewers, to a sports show, Between the Lines. I'm your host, Charlie Mitchell, and we come to you daily at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Time Warner Channel 5 and Hargrave 238. Here we are in October. The playoffs are underway for 2011 and will soon be in the World Series. Today, October marks on October 3rd the famous home run that Bobby Thomson hit at the Polo Grounds when the Giants defeated the Brooklyn Dodgers and won the pennant in 1951. We're here to salute Bobby Thomson, who died in August of 2010, and retribute done by Hank Druckerman will be shown here on this program. We have a special guest here today, and that is Rick Sofield, a former Major League player with the Minnesota Twins, worked in various capacities in the major leagues for the New York Yankees and other major league teams, and is now the current coach at USCB Baseball, which has had 3 great successful seasons when Rick came to USCB and the program began a few years back. I'm going to ask you to stroll back with me to 1951 and October 3rd, and the famous game played between the Giants and the Dodgers. This was a game that was held, believe it or not, only in front of 34,000 people. The Giants, after the war, had been a fumbling type baseball team, while the Dodgers had brought up Jackie Robinson. They had Roy Campanella, Don Newcomb, black players. They had set the pace, and the Dodgers had won the pennant in 1947 and 1949 and played the Yankees in the World Series. People forget that the Giants, after they won this game in 1951, actually played the New York Yankees in a Subway Series that same year. But people remember the game, and I'm going to ask the expert, who wasn't even born then, but he is a baseball historian, an enthusiast for baseball, and a great friend, Rick Sofield, to come in and make comments. So why don't you stroll along with me as we go to the Polo Grounds in 1951. And the first person you're probably going to see was then the manager of the New York Giants, Leo DeRocha.
In the 8th, the Dodgers got to Magley for 3 runs. And Dodger fans saw victory at long last. But Big Don Newcomb faltered in the 9th. Ralph Branca, who lost the opener, comes on the scene with 1 giant run across and 2 on base. The fans sense the drama of the situation and the irony, for Branca has to pitch to Bobby Thomson, who homered off him only 2 days ago. Branca's first pitch to Thomson is a strike, and here is pitch number 2.
There's a long flag. I saw me in the lead. The Giants won the pennant. 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 Bobby Thomson hits into the lower deck of the left field stand. The Giants won the pennant, and they're going crazy.
Last step to take, and it was not an ordinary step, but instead of taking 2 steps, I took 1 step. I jumped onto home plate, and I remember the time I thought, I'm kind of showboating doing this, taking that last step, but there it was, and it was just wonderful, unexpected excitement.
When I spoke to Bobby Thomson in August of 2008 and had the interview, he told me about how his family had come here from Scotland, and he was a 3-year-old at the time, and he settled in Staten Island, New York. I think all the people that lived in the metropolitan New York area certainly know where Staten Island is, and Bobby was a youngster that apparently gravitated to sports, went to school in Staten Island, and in high school was an outstanding athlete, not only in baseball but other sports, and eventually ended up with a
giant contract in about 1940. Unfortunately, the World War II came along, and Bobby told us about how he got into the Air Force, and he was going along fine in the Air Force and was actually in California in 1945 at an Air Force base that was going to be shipped over to the South Pacific. Unfortunately for the United States, and fortunately for Bobby, the war ended, and Bobby was discharged shortly after that in late 45. In 1946, he joined the Giant organization and went through minor league baseball and made a great career for himself. In 1947, was promoted to the New York Giants. Let Bobby tell you about what happened in his few years with the New York Giants. And in 1949, they got a new manager succeeding Mel Ott, and that was Leo DeRocher. And then in 1950, they made a trade. They got Ed Stanky and Alvin Dark. They really bolstered up their defense. And in 1951, Bobby can tell you the great story of the run of the New York Giants, who were 13 and a half games out in August, and how they caught the Brooklyn Dodgers.
A person that followed the Giants, he came in to become the manager in the middle of the season.
That sure was a surprise. I mean, you couldn't get a nicer, more gentlemanly guy than Mel Ott.
Mel Ott.
And here comes Rowdy Leo. First meeting in the locker room, I'll never forget, typical DeRocher. Hey, you guys, forget all that stuff that you've been hearing, and forget all that stuff. All that counts now is Giants, Giants, and typical personality, outspoken guy, you know, and you knew where he stood at all times. And so there was Giants, and forget Mel Ott and all the old stuff. So that was it. Then Leo's there in the ballpark with us, and life changed a little bit.
And in 49 and 50, the Giants made some runs, but it looked like Leo was going to be a flop until you came to 1951, and you started off that season in 51, not winning many games at the beginning.
I know. I was no help to them because I had started off very poorly. I had finished up the year before fairly strong. Apparently there was talk about replacing me, but the big replacement took place over at Ebbets Field with the Dodgers when they got Andy Pafko from
the Cubs.
From the Cubs, yeah. So then we won the first game, but then we dropped the next 9, I think.
Right.
And then I don't know what turned us around. I know I was in and out of the lineup, but all of a sudden, halfway through the season, we just seemed to catch fire, and the Dodgers went the other way. They just didn't win enough games, and we won more than our share.
In August, I believe you were 13 and a half or 14 and a half games out, and then all of a sudden, I even said in Danbury, Connecticut, the Giants are winning. The Giants are winning, and you started with a win streak in August, and then you kept parlaying it.
Yeah, we did. I guess won about 16 in a row, and of course that cut down the deficit quite a bit.
Right.
Then it got to the point where now we're talking about maybe winning, and then as we got even closer, 12 out, 11 out, 10 out, and you know, I didn't take it seriously. Well, of course I did, up to a point, about winning the pennant until we got under 5 games.
Right, and that was I think you beat the Braves. I think the old Boston Braves
Well,
or somebody.
well-
And then the Dodgers had a tough time with the Phillies.
Well, the last week of the season, we had 2 games to play up in Boston, and the Dodgers had 3 games to play at Philadelphia. And it's funny, at that point, that weekend, we were a half a game out still.
Right.
And the funny thing about it, we're all up in Boston, and I don't know how many former Giant players were in the one room watching it on TV,
Right.
or if they didn't, or listening to the radio, whatever. Anyway, and so that night before I went to bed, the Giants were tied with the Dodgers because Jackie Robinson had played the game of his life, first saving the game in the 9th inning with a great play at second base, and then he hit the home run the next inning to win it. So we Jackie was a bit unusual in his ability from the day he joined the Dodgers. Now everything counts, and of course we got 2 games with each team, and we won our first game, and they won their first game. And then the final game of the season, I remember, am I allowed to mention, I guess I hit a home run in that game.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and so anyway, they had scored first, and I think my home run tied up the game, but we ended up winning it. And I'll never forget, we got in the locker room, and Larry Jansen talking about, Bobby, we're the champs, we're the champs, we're the champs. Well, of course, at that time, at that moment, the Dodgers were busy losing to Philadelphia. So, you know, he was a little premature in talking of naming us the champs. So anyway, it wasn't until we got off the train that night in Grand Central Station, and we'd heard the Dodgers had won, and wow, that's when my world changed. Because, you know, well, we didn't like the Dodgers, but we had to admit they were, you realize the Hall of Famers they had on that team. And we respected them. We didn't like them, but we sure respected them as a ball club. And so the new world then. And I remember driving over to Ebbets Field the next Monday morning, and I remember thinking to myself, hey, this isn't another ball game. This is playing for the pennant. And I started asking myself questions. Well, how are you going to hold up, young man? How good are you under the pressure that we were going to be feeling? Well, you know, and I was an honest guy, and it was a typical question to ask myself. Well, it was the 3rd inning, I think, and Carl Furillo topped a ground ball down the third baseline, first man up in that inning. And of course, you want to get the first guy out. The first batter of an inning gets on, and you know it could be a problem. So I went in and had to field the ball with my bare hand and one motion throw underhand to first base, and I made the play. And I remember thinking to myself, hey, not bad, kid. I think you're all right. Okay. And really, these are things that went through my mind. And so that was it. I felt, oh, kid, you're okay. You're nothing to worry about. You're not going to fold up.
Right. You won the first game.
So then we won the first game, and I hit a home run, of course, with a man on, and Monty Irvin hit a home run also. So we won the game 3-1. I don't know.
I think,
Andy Pafko hit one.
I don't know, but Sheldon Jones pitched for you some of the innings.
No, that first game was Jim Hearn.
Oh, Jim Hearn, okay.
Jim Hearn pitched that first game. So anyway, hey, we're well on our way. So the Tuesday we played the Polo Grounds, and we got shut out 10-0. And
Right.
that's the worst feeling I ever had in my life. I'll never forget. I was probably one of the last guys out of the ballpark, and by the time I got out to my car, there were 3 old friends from Staten Island there, old buddies, and wanted to know, Bobby, what kind of plans do you have? I said, I'm going home, and I was living with my mother at the time. And I'm going home, and my mother will have dinner ready for me, and that's it. And they just said, you're not going home. I said, yeah. Hey, yeah, she'll be. I don't want to disappoint her. She'll be there waiting for me, expecting me. And no, you're not going home. You're coming with us. So they took me down to Downtown Athletic Club.
Okay.
And as it turned out, had a couple of beers and a good dinner. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Got you loosened up for the final game.
Went home and had a good night's sleep, and that was it.
Okay, and Bobby, let me set the stage here. As we get to the 3rd game at the Polo Grounds, and then you've got you're losing in the 8th inning. I guess what, 4-1 or 4?
Yeah, we go into the 9th inning, 4-1.
Tell us what else happened next.
No, I never felt more disgusted my life when we got into the dugout, losing 4-1, and I threw my glove down on the dugout floor, and I just thought to myself, we just weren't good enough to beat the Dodgers, because we respected them.
Right.
And that was it. And before you know it, Al Dark and Mueller had these little infield singles, and then our big guy Monty Irvin's his turn. I mean, without him, we wouldn't have been there. He was our big guy all year, and he certainly was. So anyway, it was just his turn to pop up, I guess, and that's baseball. As I say, without him, we wouldn't have been to that point. So now Whitey Lockman hits a line drive over shortstop to left field for a double, and I didn't, since I'm the next batter due up to the plate, I didn't see Don Mueller slide in the 3rd, but this next thing I realized, he's lying on the ground, and instead of me walking to home plate, I'm down there at 3rd base, still had the bat in my hand, and poor Mueller, he's lying on the ground with a broken leg, and he's really hurting.
I would think so.
And that's just what I realized. When they carried him off the field, it just had broken the tension of the situation. And I remember from that point on, I remember every little thing that happened to me. Because I remember going through my mind, back to baseball. And actually, that's what went through my mind after carrying Mueller off the field. And now I had 90 feet to walk to home plate. And I remember DeRocher came up to me and he said, Bobby, if you ever hit one now. I thought to myself, you're out of your mind. I just ignored him. I just walked right by him. And now in my 90 feet, it was 90 feet that I hadn't experienced before in my life, because it all started when somebody asked me later on, you know, what was a crowd like? And boy, I realized, what crowd? I was all by myself in that park. And I remember doing something I'd never done before. I psyched myself up. I talked to myself. Get up there, do a good job. Exact words. I got back to fundamentals. That's what I was doing. And I was the only guy in the park. And then now, they're changing pitchers when all this is going on, which I'm not aware of. And I even started swearing at myself, USOB, USOB. And why would I be swearing at myself? Well, again, trying to get back to fundamentals, I was psyching myself up. You know, when you get up at a time like that, you want to be aggressive, but you can't forget the fundamentals of waiting and watching. And you know, you're going up there to do a job at the plate. So anyway, that's the way it happened. Now, they had changed pitchers. I get to home plate, I couldn't believe it. There's Ralph Branca out on the mound. And I wasn't even aware that they had changed pitchers. And my 90-foot walk to home plate. So now I'm up there and I look out, I couldn't believe it, Ralph Branca's on the mound. So it didn't faze me at all. Ralph threw the first pitch right over the plate for a strike. And later on, the guys told me after we had won, they wanted to kill me for taking that first strike right down the middle. And then Ralph, his second pitch, he came high inside with a fastball. It was actually a ball, but it wasn't bad enough that I'd been pretty quick with my hands, and I've been hitting pretty well at the end of the year. And I remember just getting a glimpse of the ball. And Ralph later told me he thought he made a heck of a pitch, and he did make a heck of a pitch. But I'd been hitting well, and I got lucky. But I was quick with my hands, and I gave myself a chance to hit. In fact, today, I've said it many times, I've never taken credit for doing a whole lot of my life, but there's one thing they'll never take away from me. And I gave myself a chance to hit, and that's really all a batter can do, give himself a chance to hit. And then the rest, the good Lord decides, you know, if you're going to be lucky enough to do it. So anyway, I thought I knew I made good contact, and I thought first thing that went through my mind, home run. And then I saw it must have had tremendous overspin on it, and it started to sink. And then the next thing that ran through my head, it's not a home run, it's just a base hit. And then, I don't know, on my way to first, I saw it disappear into the left field stands. Wow. And I remember it was excitement that I never experienced before. And I just kind of loping around the bases, you know, not a normal home run trot. And that was it. So I know DeRocher tried to reach for me, and this, as I noticed in the film later on, but Eddie Stanky had other idea. He came and wrestled him to the ground out of his enthusiasm. And the guys were all waiting for me at home plate. And I remember I had one last step to take, and it was not an ordinary step, but instead of taking 2 steps, I took 1 step. I jumped onto home plate. And I remember the time I thought, I'm kind of showboating doing this, taking that last step, but there it was, and it was just wonderful.
And I'm going to ask you the first question. The first question I'm going to ask you is that there have been many famous home runs hit in baseball history. There have been many hit to win the National League Pennant or the American League Pennant, and there have also been famous home runs in the World Series. Now just tell me why I think that Bobby Thomson's home run 60 years ago was the most dramatic home run that still remains in the hearts of many baseball fans across the country.
Well, Charlie, it's not too far-fetched to say that's not the greatest home run hit for baseball historians. TV, we had just started doing baseball games on television. It wasn't an everyday scenario like it is today. So for the home fan who didn't get to the ballpark to see that type of excitement, made television even more popular with sports teams and local markets. So historically, it was a great moment for television itself. And then when you look at the game itself, I mean, the New York Giants and the Brooklyn Dodgers, you look at the names that are in that game, 5, 6, 7 Hall of Famers, some tremendous ball players. And at a time, New York was dominating baseball throughout the country. You had the Yankees in the American League who was winning that thing all through the 50s, early 60s. Every year it seemed that two New York teams were in the World Series. So the battle within the in-state rival or the in-town rival leaked out throughout the country. That's why so many fans were New York Yankee fans outside the region. But what a great moment to look at the seasons. Both teams had tremendous years. And again, I've said this to you before, Charlie, I've never thought for one moment professionally that the Brooklyn club collapsed. I think the Giants just played spectacular baseball and earned it. I don't think the Dodgers did anything not to get it. They went 26 or 27 and 22 down the stretch when the Giants went to that 37 out of 44 stretch. I mean, 37 games out of 44, you've won 37 out of 44. I don't care what league you're in. And, it's hard to keep a team like that out of first place. And they did it just at the right time late in the second half. And obviously, if you look at Bobby Thomson's statistics, he led that club offensively the second half of the season. This wasn't he just didn't have a quick weekend of good baseball. He hit a home run off of Barranca before that pitch. He had hit 3 or 4 throughout the season. He kind of, really the argument is whether Dressen should have brought Barranca in or Erskine. Erskine was also up in the bullpen for the Dodgers at the time, and he had his choice and got bad information in the bullpen because Erskine had bounced a couple curveballs in the dirt, and the bullpen coach was uncomfortable with it and recommended Barranca. And Dreesen went with him, and obviously it turned out to be a bad choice for Dodger fans. Game 1, Dreesen, who's the manager, has a flip of the coin and wins it and decides to play home the first game, and then the next 2 games would be played in the other ballpark.
In the Polo Grounds.
He wanted game 1 to win in Brooklyn, and he figured he could split on the road, and unfortunately the Giants won the first game.
Right. And that first game, Bobby Thomson hit a home run off Franca.
Yes, he did.
Now, the second game.
Blowout.
Right.
Dodgers 10-0.
Right, and game 3, the score is, you got it right there, in the 7 innings, and then in the top of the 8th, the Dodgers scored 3 runs.
I believe Robinson was in the mix. Pee Wee Reese got a single. I believe Hodges gets a hit. He also pops up later with runners in scoring position. But they go into that 8th 4-1. They get their 3 spot in the 8th and have the lead 4-1.
Okay. Then we come to, and Don Newcomb is pitching.
Still in the game. Now let's reflect. Had won the day before the season ended, okay? Pitched 5 2/3 the next day in relief on the final game of the season to keep him in it. 2 days later, he's starting this ball game because they didn't have a travel day. They went right into the playoffs.
Right.
So Newcomb's back in, going in on the 8th inning, 120 pitches after throwing 14 or 15 innings in a 2-day period. This guy's tired right now. There's no question about it.
Well, he was a great, great pitcher.
And what does what's he say to Jackie Robinson in the dugout? Jackie, I don't have anything left. And Jackie turned to him and said, you'll stay out there till that arm falls off. You hear me?
Right.
And he winds up trying to stay in the ballgame for another inning or so.
Rick, when we were talking, what you saw on TV with Bobby Thomson was that we come to the last of the 9th. The Giants are dejected. The Dodgers are 4-1. Newcomb is out there. And all of a sudden, Alvin Dark gets what we call a scratch single.
It's a single, right? Gets a single leadoff hit.
Okay. Alvin Dark is on first base. Don Mueller comes to the plate, and tell us about what you thought about Gil Hodges.
Well, Gil Hodges is in a no doubles position. He's very close to that first base line, and Mueller hits a single that right out of his reach. I think if Hodges is in normal position, he fields that ball for a double play ball, but it never happens because that ball goes through, and Mueller's on first base with a single.
Okay, Mueller was called Mandrake the Magician, and he got that hit. Alvin Dark goes to third base, who, by the way, was the captain of the Giant team. That brings up Whitey Lockman, a good player, and Whitey gets the bat.
And hits a seed, a P-rod to left center field, hits a square on the nose, and sends themselves into a one-run scored, runners on second and third with one out.
Okay, Dark has scored. The score is 4-2, and Mueller slides into third base and breaks his
ankle, which is a big timeout, a long period of time.
Right. Okay, there's a period of time, and they bring in a pinch runner who happens to be the Hondu Hurricane, Clint Hartung, who was a outfielder pitcher for the Giants. So he's on third base. Lockman is on second. This is October 3rd, 1951, TV viewers. And then Monty Urban comes up. And Monty has carried the club during this wonderful stretch run the Giants have made.
And he pops up.
But as Bobby Thomson said in the interview, that's baseball. Now Bobby comes to bat.
Who's the hottest guy, arguably in the National League the entire second half, and clearly in the first week, he's the hottest hitter on both teams.
Right. Don Newcomb is replaced when Charlie Dressen does the famous call to the bullpen.
Right.
And he brings in
Ralph Branca, and he also had a choice of Carl Erskine. And the reason he brings Branca in is because his bullpen coach tells him that Erskine has bounced two curveballs in warm-ups and doesn't like what he sees, and he goes back to Branca, who is not the matchup right there. It's a bad matchup for Dodger fans.
Okay. We're back at the game, second and third, one out. Bobby Thomson is up, and the first pitch is a strike.
Right down the middle, fastball.
Okay. Branca, second pitch. Tell us.
Tries to throw a fastball, and it seems to come out a little bit up and in. Thompson was sitting on a fastball, looked like, and he hit that ball right over that left field fence. And it had a little sink to it as it went over, so he had gotten around it a little bit more than usual. He didn't square it up as well, but he was looking for a fastball, and it was on the inner half, and it was up in his eyes, and he connected well.
As the interview shows, Bobby thought at first it was going out. Then he says it had overspin.
Yeah.
He was worried it was going to hit the wall out in left field, but it went in.
Went right on in.
Many home runs, as Rick has said, has been hit since that date, but this is 60 years ago, and it was a wonderful feeling to this 21-year-old and to this baseball historian who's brought us up to date. Thank you, Rick, for coming on and sharing that great moment with us.
My pleasure, Charlie.
Again, I want to thank Rick Sofield, current coach at USCB, for his great information about that famous home run with Bobby Thomson. Unfortunately, Bobby Thomson died in August, as I mentioned earlier, of 2010. But I'm proud to say that I know that I was the last person to interview Bobby Thomson prior to his death. His daughter, Nancy Mitchell, no relation, lives at Skidaway, and her husband's name is Charlie Mitchell. The Giants of 1951 was a great, great team that came on and beat a great Brooklyn team. Brooklyn had more glories, although the Giants in 1954 won the World Series by beating the Indians 4 straight after they had walked away with the pennant. We bless the soul of Bobby Thomson, and TV viewers, this is one of the great shows I think that Between the Lines have put on because of the great work that our cameraman Ed Harper does and Hank Druckerman, and it's a sentimental moment, and every once in a while during October, you baseball fans, watch this show, watch the playoffs, watch the World Series, and let's think of Bobby Thomson. Have a great day.
instead of taking 2 steps, I took 1 step. I jumped onto home plate. Never taken credit for doing a whole lot of my life, but there's one thing they'll never take away from me. And I gave myself a chance to hit, and that's really all a batter can do.